Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of this workshop, and as you can see here I've removed my chalk lines and touched up my piece so that I don't have any splatters. Everything's kind of ready to go for the second layer, and I've got my color flash paints here. I've got my green, my teal, light blue, and purple, and you can top dot any way you want. I really think the top dots add a fun second layer to this piece, but I'm going to show you how I did mine. And so first I'm going to get an 8mm tool. Oops. And right here in the center I'm going to do an 8mm dot with my purple. And when I do top dots, I like to work from the center outward so that I'm not putting my hands in anything. I'm just going to add just a pinch more paint. There we go. So 8mm purple in the center. I'm going to get a 3mm tool. You can use a stylus or a tool. I'm going to use the light blue. And I'm going to add a 3mm light blue all the way around this circle of Calypso blue here. All of the colors chosen for the flash will blend in with the color on the background, except for this really bright green, which is going to make a nice effect. It really just makes it pop. Well, some of these other colors just add a little something, but not too much. So 3mm all the way around this blue circle. I'm going to stick with my 3mm tool. This time I'm going to use this green. And I'm going to add a 3mm dot in between, or in the center of the center dot here. And you can see, compared to the previous two colors, this one really is bright. I'm going to clean off that 3mm tool and I'm going to continue using it. Next we are going to add our teal color on top of these teal right here. Then I'm going to grab a 6mm tool, and around this Calypso blue we're going to add light blue in the center of those dots. going to go down a little bit in size. I'm going to grab my 5mm tool, and I'm going to use purple, and we're going to place it on this dark Twilight row here. So this was 5mm purple on Twilight. I'm going to grab a 4mm tool, and I'm also going to add purple on the next Twilight circle. Next, we're going to grab an 8mm tool, continuing with that purple, and we are going to add an 8mm dot in the center of these large Twilight circles. There are just a few here now that we're getting a little larger in size that need a little bit more paint. Sometimes this color shift paint, being as thick as it is, can create bubbles, so in these large circles I'm definitely going to go back and make sure there are no bubbles that need to be popped. Spread out the paint a little bit. Here, I've got some nice even circles. Pretty happy with that. All right, I'm going to grab my 3mm tool and I'm going to do some light blue on this true blue here. And we're going to continue working with this light blue, and we are going to go down this center row with top dots. And so I'm going to start with my 4mm tool, and we're going to do the light blue on Calypso blue for this top dot here. So we're going to go all the way around with a 4mm tool. Then I'm going to get my 3mm tool. The next dot is 3mm. You may be wondering why I didn't just walk the dots, and the reason why, I don't really like to walk the dots as much when I'm working with thicker paint, and this color shift tends to be thicker. So in order to get evenly sized dots, I prefer to do it this way in this type of situation. But you'll see, so for the next two dots, so I did 3mm, and then the next two dots I am going to kind of walk the dots or do a double dot. So I'm going to switch to my 2.5mm end, and then I can do dot, dot for the last two. I just felt like this paint was a little too gloopy to be able to walk the dots, especially in a set of 4. Alright, so we've gone all the way around with those. Next, I'm going to grab my 4mm tool, and we've got these pins right here. I'm going to add a dot at the top of my pins, and then I'm going to pull that with my 1mm stylus. So we're doing dot, dot, and then pull, pull. Dot, And then this is my favorite part. We are going to use a 5mm tool and our bright green, and we're going to add a top dot to each one of these circles around the edge. And I am absolutely in love with the way this bright green looks on top of the darker green. It's my favorite part of this piece. I was going to stop the design right there, but I think I am going to do one more thing with my top dots. I'm going to get my 2mm tool here, and I'm going to use this bright green. I'm really digging the way that the bright green looks up against that dark green, and so I'm going to take this bright green, and be careful if your paint is still wet, but I am going to add a swipe right down the center up here on this darker green. I just wanted a little more of that. I really like the way the green looks on top of the green. All right, I am finished and I am absolutely loving it. So what I'm going to do now is let this dry completely, and then I'm going to show you how I varnish. So if you want to let your piece dry for several hours and then come back and watch the end, I'm going to show you how I clean it up and put a coat of varnish on, and that will be how we finish our piece. All right, everyone, I'm back. My piece is dry and I'm ready to add a layer of varnish. My favorite varnish to use is Decoart Americana Triple Thick. I think it is great for self-leveling, and it has a really nice shiny finish. What I'm going to do first is I've got this lint roller that I use for my art, and this is a great way to get up any little hairs or dust that you might have on your piece. You can always just roll it if your piece is flat enough. I usually start that way, and then what I'll do is peel this off, and I'll kind of just smush it on there. The reason why I like to use a lint roller versus tape is sometimes that tape can be really strong and it might pull up pieces of the acrylic, which we don't want to do. So I'm just going to pat this around and get rid of a lot of that dust. If you have a pet household like I do, this is especially handy. So just give everything a tap. Also, sometimes when you are wiping up your chalk marks, what ends up happening is you get dust either from the cloth that you're using or the baby wipe or whatever that may be. So I just like to make sure that we get all of that little stuff up and out of there, because once you varnish, it's there forever. Another thing that I do, and because I've used this a few times, is I'm going to take a wipe and I'm going to clean off the edges of the top rim so that I can pour cleanly, because otherwise what ends up happening is you'll get little chunks of whatever paint is dried around here. But I'm just going to pour this triple thick out. And you can apply triple thick in a really nice thick layer. If you want to, you can apply little by little with your paintbrush as well, but I find this works a little better. The faster you can work, the better, because you don't want your glaze to start drying, and it does dry fairly quickly, so you want to work quickly. And I would rather have more than not enough. So what I'm going to do is just start spreading this around. And you want a nice thick layer. You know you have enough when it's a little bit milky. And I pull it from the inside out to the edges. And this was probably the perfect amount of varnish. I feel like I have just enough. Sometimes what can happen if you don't put enough, you get really thin layers and you get missing little bits and pieces. But this looks like it is the perfect amount. And I can tell because see how it's just kind of milky just about everywhere. We don't want it to be too thin. So I just go around, make sure everything is covered. And you can even tell by the time I get all the way around my circle, most of this has started to level off. Bubbles can easily be popped with a little bit of air. So I usually just kind of spin it slowly and blow on it. So that's what I'm going to do now. Also checking for any chunks or anything that should not be there. Alright, but that's how I apply my varnish. Triple thick dries fairly quickly, so this will be finished in about 2 hours. It'll be dry to the touch in about an hour. I would say anytime you varnish something, give it overnight just to cure completely. But when we are finished, it will have a nice shiny sheen and it will be beautiful and ready to hang. So thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see how yours turns out. Please make sure you share with me. You can share by adding yours to the share space here on my site so everybody can see, or you can join me in Mandala Artist USA and you can share in there. I would love to see it. Also, you could share by just tagging me on social media at TaraLynnPughArtist.com and it will show up on my feed that way. Thank you so much for participating. I can't wait to see how yours turned out, and I'll see you next time, everyone.